Hello everybody, and welcome to the video where we talk about arguments versus adjuncts. Essentially, this is just going to be a very brief overview of the differences between arguments and adjuncts, and why this is important when we're studying linguistics. So every complete sentence or clause, every complete clause has in any language, every complete clause has a predicate and an argument, or at least one predicate. They have predicates and arguments. So in the example of Ari slept, we have a predicate, slept, and an argument, Ari. Jasmine watched the show, we have a predicate, which actually you could call the predicate watched the show, or you could call it watched, because watched itself takes an argument here, right? So we have a predicate with an argument, and then watch the show itself becomes a predicate which takes an argument. Tony sent Selena a cake. Similarly, we have a predicate. There's a more complicated embedding structure here. But then we have arguments here. Now, how do we tell for sure that something is an argument? The best way to tell that something is an argument is if you try dropping it out of the sentence and you see if the sentence makes sense. So the sentence Ari slept, if we take Ari out of the sentence, I'm not actually going to cross it out because I'm going to reuse this. But if we take Ari out of the sentence and we just say slept, is that allowed? No, it's not allowed, so Ari has to be an argument. Let's try this one. Jasmine watched the show. Are we allowed to just say watched the show? No, you're not. There's some sense that can be made there, but it's not a complete clause. It's not a complete sentence. So we know that Jasmine is an argument. Similarly, are we allowed to say Jasmine watched? Not without context, right? So you could maybe say, like Mary put on the show and Jasmine watched, right? But there's context saying that there needs to be the show in there, right? Similarly, if we try this one out, Tony sent Selena a cake. Can we drop Tony? Sent Selena a cake. That's definitely not a complete sentence. How about a cake? Tony sent Selena. That is allowed, but that is a totally different meaning, right? That means Tony said, Selena, go over there, right? That's a totally different meaning from this sort of send. Tony sent a cake. You can maybe say that, but you'd need some context for who the cake was going to, right? So, I broke my leg last week and Tony sent a cake, right? It's implied that he's sending you a cake, right? But there's that implication that is there. There are things we can add to a sentence, which are most assuredly not arguments, but they look like they maybe could be, right? So let's say we change our sentence to Ari slept on the couch. What do we do with the couch? Well, so this is providing some information about this sentence, right? So it's telling you about where the sleeping was happening. But it's not really gonna be required, right? So Ari slept by itself is fine, and you're getting basically the same information, the same kind of meaning. It just is maybe a little less detailed. So this is called an adjunct. And these are the types of things that are omissible. Oftentimes they're going to have prepositions in front of them in English. But other things that can be adjuncts are things like if we say Ari slept yesterday, that's another kind of adjunct. We can add adjuncts to this, like Jasmine watched the show with Kathy, for example. That Kathy is in an adjunct phrase. This whole thing is an adjunct. Right, we didn't need to know that she watched the show with Kathy for it to be completely grammatical. Tony sent Selena a cake in the mail. In the mail is an adjunct. Some more, just a little bit more about arguments. So in these examples, these are the most typical examples. These are mostly what you need to know about arguments versus adjuncts. But there are other things besides verbs that take arguments. So this first example, we still have a verb taking arguments, but predicates are notoriously picky about the types of arguments they take. So Trish said is not grammatical. You're not allowed to say Trish said, right? That's not allowed. So we need another argument here. I'm going to use blue again for our arguments. We need another argument in order to make this grammatical. But you also can't say Trish said Pat unless you do the right intonation. So if Trish is actually speaking aloud and what she says is Pat, then this, if we put our quotation marks there, it becomes okay. But other than that, this would be our argument, but it's not allowed, right? Because said is looking for something other than just a name, right? In its argument position. What we have to do here is actually said is looking for a whole clause, right? So Trish said that Pat likes cheese. Is this whole thing is an argument, even though it's not a noun, right? So nouns are not the only things that can be arguments. Similarly, predicates care about the semantics and the meaning of their arguments, right? So you can say Nolan fears popcorn. I don't know why Nolan would fear popcorn, but you can't say the popcorn fears Nolan because popcorn can't do any fearing, right? So this is saying that's not an appropriate argument for me, right? So predicates can care about the meanings of their arguments. It can care about the type of their arguments, and just as a side note, verbs are not the only things that have arguments, right? So in this case, you can say the red herring, but you can't say the red because it's missing its argument, right? So adjectives here still require arguments. And this is what makes adjectives and verbs so similar, is that they both take argument. All right, so I hope that clarifies a little bit of the difference between arguments and adjuncts. Yeah, thanks.